Energiewende, that's the transition away from fossil and nuclear fuels over to renewables. Germany has made a decision with quite some ambitious goals. We want to finish this transition by 2050 at the latest. And it has been a unanimous decision of our parliament. Ruling parties and opposition parties both agreed on this. 13 years ago, when we passed our support scheme for renewable energies, we put all the different technologies on the same starting line. That means that all the different technologies received just about that kind of a feed-in tariff that investors needed to start building windmills, solar panels, biomass generators, etc. And now we are 13 years smarter. We have seen that there are very clearly two winners of this technological race. That's wind and solar. And also some technologies, for example, biomass, have grown quite a bit, but now we see that we are reaching limits, at least in a sustainable way. We will not be able to expand power production from biomass much over the level that we have already reached today. So, as I said, there are two winners, wind and solar. And these two technologies have features that are very different from what we know from our generation system in the past. First, they are weather dependable. That means they do not produce electricity according to demand or prices at the power exchange. They produce electricity according to weather conditions. They vary very strongly. For example, photovoltaic, we have 33 gigawatts installed capacity of photovoltaic. 6 o'clock in the morning, there's almost zero production. 12 o'clock at noon, there might be 25 gigawatts or more. And of course, as rapidly as it increases in the morning, the production goes down in the evening. So the second feature is big variation. The third feature is marginal costs of zero. That means the operational costs are almost nothing. You have high investments, but afterwards you have very few operational costs. These three features are going to force us to reinvent our power system. In the center, wind and solar, and the rest of the power system has to group around these two technologies. That means we need flexibility. We need flexibility with the residual generation capacity. That means we're not going to have so-called base load generators anymore that run 8,760 hours a year, but the residual ones are going to be more like a backup system with much shorter operational hours. That speaks for generators that have low investment costs, maybe higher fuel costs. For example, gas generation, that would fit perfectly. We also need more flexibility on the demand side, and we need grid expansion. That is a very crucial point, because the better we connect ourselves within Germany and the European countries among each other, the better these variable inputs from electricity from wind and solar panels are kind of going to levelize themselves. So the key challenge of the Energiewende is, how do we synchronize this fluctuating input from electricity production from wind and solar with the demands of the customers? And as I said, we need flexibility for that. I often get asked, why was it possible to increase the shares of renewables from 5% in 1998 to 25% in 2013? That is quite a success story. And I think there are some very important key factors that made this success possible. First of all, the support scheme was predictable, it was easy to understand, and it was not depending on annual budget negotiations or on bureaucratic decisions. It was a legal relationship between those who build, for example, windmills and the operators of the grid system. The latter had to take all the produced kilowatt hours and then market the electricity at the power exchange. And the difference between the feed-in tariff and the market price, well, that's being paid via surcharge by the electricity customers. I think that every country has to decide on its own what is the best way. But there's some lessons that can be learned. For example, predictability. The support scheme has to be predictable. It has to be predictable over longer time, because if you want to invest into a factory that builds windmills, you're not going to put huge amounts of money on the table if you only have a market perspective of 2 or 3 years. You need a long-term perspective. So stability and predictability are key lessons from this transition that has happened so far in Germany.